Ukamaka had just finished learning how to sew. Her heart was bursting with excitement. She had no shop yet, only a small second-hand sewing machine. But she believed her talent would one day open doors that no one could shut. When she moved into Mr. Abaka's compound, a big two face-to-face yard in the heart of the city, she thought it was only a stepping stone. The rent was cheap, but the place was like a ghetto market. Music blasted from old radios. Lovers quarreled loudly at night. Children shouted as they played football with plastic bottles, and neighbors argued endlessly over water and electricity. More than 50 men and women lived there. Some were married, but most were single, restless, and full of drama. On her first day, Ukamaka entered with a small traveling bag and folded fabrics. Some women on the corridor eyed her from head to toe, chewing gum and whispering, "New girl done land. Nah, who she be?" She smiled shyly, even though inside her chest her heart beat fast. She told herself, "This is where my dream begins." Ukamaka arranged her small room with care. She placed a sewing machine by the window, folded her fabrics neatly, and sat staring at them with joy. That night, she hardly slept. She imagined customers lining up at her door, children twirling in dresses she had sewn, her name spreading across the city like a song. But life in Mr. Abaka's compound was not easy. The yard was always buzzing with noise, fights, and gossip. Lazy girls with flashy wigs and heavy makeup sat on the wooden bench in the corridor, chewing gum loudly and rolling their eyes. Idle men leaned against cracked walls, whistling and disturbing any woman who passed. Ukamaka was not spared. They teased her, mocked her, and sometimes blocked her way, but she always kept her eyes forward. She had come for one thing only, her dream. Trouble came soon enough. One evening, after she washed and spread her dresses on the line, she came back to find two of her skirts missing. Whispers filled the corridor. "Now the compound girls carry am. Them no fit see better cloth, we them no go thief." Ukamaka's face turned red with anger, but she kept quiet. She wanted peace. Inside her room, she sat on her bed and cried bitterly, but only for a short while. Then, she wiped her tears, stood up, and whispered firmly, "No thief will bury my dream." She sat at her sewing machine, picked up another fabric, and began to design a new blouse. Her silence shocked everyone. Neighbors expected her to fight like others in the yard, to shout, to drag wigs in the corridor. Instead, she turned her pain into determination. As her machine rattled, children peeped through her window, whispering, "See how she dey sew new cloth." She know they give up, but the challenges did not end. One morning, two more blouses disappeared. Again, Ukamaka was angry, but instead of fighting, she went inside, sat at her sewing machine, and began to create another design. People began to whisper differently now. "This girl gets strong spirit. She know they tire." Then, one day, disaster struck. Her second-hand sewing machine broke down completely. She sat, staring at it, her heart pounding. For a moment, she felt lost. That night, she lay awake, wondering if her dream was over. The next day, determined not to give up, she borrowed an old rusty sewing machine from a woman on the next street. The machine was stiff, its black paint chipped, its metal eaten by rust. The handle squeaked loudly as she turned it. Still, Ukamaka sat at the table, bent over her work, and continued. Neighbors watched in amazement as her fingers moved with grace, turning old cloth into beautiful dresses. Her persistence began to draw attention. Mothers brought their children's clothes for her to mend. Young girls gave her fabrics for blouses. Slowly, quietly, her little room became a place of hope in a noisy yard. Even those who once mocked her now stared with envy. One afternoon, as children played football in the compound, a wealthy woman passed through. She stopped suddenly when she saw a little boy in the yard, wearing one of Ukamaka's colorful outfits. "Who made this beautiful dress?" she asked, her eyes wide with surprise. The boy pointed proudly. "Na, Auntie Ukamaka, su am." The wealthy woman followed him straight to Ukamaka's small room. She entered and found Ukamaka bent over her rusty machine, sweat on her forehead, determination in her eyes. The woman gasped as she saw the bright fabrics neatly arranged, the creativity stitched into every piece. "My dear," the woman said with a smile, "your talent is too big for this yard. I will help you." From that day, Ukamaka's life began to change. Orders poured in. The compound girls, who once mocked her, now watched in silence, their envy heavy in the air. The idle men no longer whistled. They stared with regret. Children clung to her, calling her Auntie Taylor. Even Mr. Abaka, who once scolded her for leaving threads on the corridor, now boasted, "Now my compound produced this fashion designer." At last, the day came when Ukamaka packed her things. With her fabrics folded neatly and her sewing machine in hand, she stood at the old rusty gate of Mr. Abaka's yard. Children hugged her legs, tears in their eyes. Women stood quietly, some ashamed, some proud. The compound buzzed, but Ukamaka's heart was calm. She wore a red and gold Ankara gown, her afro glowing in the evening sun. She smiled and said, "This is just the beginning." Beyond the gate, the city awaited. Ukamaka opened her own shop, filled with mannequins dressed in her bold designs, fabrics glowing in the sunlight, and customers waiting eagerly. She stood tall, her braids shining with golden beads, her eyes full of the same fire she carried from the very first day. Because no thief, no gossip, no fight, no rusty machine could bury Ukamaka's dream.